So I'm Rob Smith. I work at the Northwest Arkansas Council, and we're a regional nonprofit organization, and we work on projects big and small. Abby, I think it was you that said you like to have success on big projects or small projects. The council tends to want to take on big projects, and they're all of a regional nature. The sheet that you're getting two. One is the colored one, and I'll talk a little about that first because I think it's a great example of regional things we do. We set out to do what we called an infrastructure inventory and assessment, and it's part of a larger goal to have a 25-year capacity plan. Now you have to be asking, what in the world does that mean? So in essence, we went out and tried to take an inventory of all the infrastructure types that are out there, whether it's buses, water-related stuff, wastewater-related stuff, airport stuff, all of these categories of things, but it's the beginning of a larger goal, which is to figure out where we need to be investing future funding as part of a 25-year infrastructure capacity plan. So in essence, when our region has $25 million, are we better off spending that on highways? Are we better off spending that on cleaning up wastewater? Are we better off spending that on making more drinking water because our population's growing? So this sheet I like because it has so many big numbers. I mean, I think if you look at it, we have 32 cities. We have 2 major drinking water systems. We have, many trash haulers and 1 landfill that everything goes into, which is just kind of amazing that we have just 1, and a lot of it shipped out of state. But I just really use that sheet to illustrate just kind of how many parts there are, how many moving parts there are to Northwest Arkansas. So you can take that home. That's the one sheet of about 60 pages. The thing I really wanted to talk about is what's on the other sheet. And I specifically asked Melissa, can I talk to this group? Sent her an email a few weeks ago and said, I'd like to talk about the region, and my goal was to help this group recognize that Springdale's part of a larger community that we call Northwest Arkansas. And so I hope you all have been to every city in Northwest Arkansas. How many of you have been to Bentonville, Rogers, Springdale, and Fayetteville? Is there anybody who hasn't been to all 4 of those cities? Anybody who hasn't been to Siloam Springs? So we're doing good. You've been to all these cities, and you've probably eaten meals, and you've probably been to the casino because you're, of course, old enough to do that, right? That's sarcasm. I do that often. But I guess my point is that we really don't recognize boundaries a lot. The Razorback Greenway, which you see illustrated here in red, goes through 6 cities. It maybe 7 cities, I'm not quite sure, but it runs 37 miles, and certainly Springdale's an important part of that, right here in the middle, but it's part of a larger trail that's better because it's bigger. It's better because it's longer. You don't just want to ride a bike in your city. I ride the whole thing all the time as much as possible. And so that's one example of a great regional project. We talk about highways. You know our highways, I-49, about how many of you know what the Bella Vista Bypass is? Does anybody know what that is? Not one person knows what the Bella Vista Bypass is? The Bella Vista Bypass is a project up here in this part of the world that's being worked on. It'll be an important part of I-49, and we've got it funded in Arkansas, and we need some funding in Missouri to happen. They need about $32 million to build the last 4 miles of the Bella Vista Bypass. We still have some construction to occur in Arkansas, but we do have the funding for it. So it involves a regional effort to coordinate with not only partners in Northwest Arkansas, but also the state of Missouri. That's a huge project for our region. You've heard a lot about, everybody know what US 412 is? When I say that, you know it through town, but you may know there's a larger bypass that's being planned and actually under construction right now. You've seen all the construction up by the J.B. Hunt headquarters. That's another example where the state stepped in. Voters passed a half-cent sales tax to support that larger project that I think if the mayor were honest, it was probably too big a project for just Springdale to do. You'd need, for the whole thing, we're talking about a project that's probably in excess of 400, maybe in excess of $500 million. To put that in perspective, if you took every sales tax dollar generated in all of our cities and our 2 counties in Benton and Washington County, it's about $60 to $65 million a year. So you can imagine how long it would take to fund the 412 bypass. And you could do nothing else because that's the primary funding for our city governments is a sales tax. So think about that. If every community put all of its money together and only did the 412 bypass, we're looking at 8 years of construction. I mean, and that's all that could happen. It's just an incredible amount, and that's why regional really works. A few other things I wanted to talk about, and Melissa, I'm keeping track of the time. You're going to wave your hand when I need to be quiet. We do a lot of regional approach to water, drinking water. The Beaver Water District, the Benton, Washington Regional Public Water Authority that a lot of folks refer to as 2-ton. Those are our two primary water providers. I think it's one of every 6 residents of Arkansas actually gets their water from Beaver Lake. I think it's one of every 6. And while the Beaver Water District provides the funding for these core cities in the middle, the 2-ton system, which is what everybody always calls the Regional Water Authority, actually has a massive line that runs from up here in Avoca all the way across and straight down to Lincoln. And it provides the water that a lot of the smaller cities, particularly those on the western and in the northwestern part of our region, rely on for drinking water. That's important. A lot of our cities have their own wastewater systems, but there is one regional wastewater system. It's very small. It's called the Northwest Arkansas Conservation Authority. Springdale is one member of about 10 cities that someday expect to use the NACA plant. They call it NACA. That's a good example of regional work that we do there. Working together is also important, though, because downstream Oklahoma, people canoe in the Illinois River when you get into Oklahoma. And one of the things we want to do is we want to keep the river as clean as possible. We discharge wastewater in there. There's a lot of importance to keeping wastewater clean. And a lot of our cities do that, and then we do that on some level at a regional level, and probably in the future, you're going to see that occur more and more on a regional level. I didn't talk at all about our regional airport. Our regional airport is, everybody knows, how many of you have flown out of XNA? Every single one of you, fantastic. I won't ask how much your fares were, but they may have been high. And so one of my specific projects is we want to recruit a low-cost carrier to come to XNA because that's a real challenge for our corporate partners like Walmart, Tyson, J.B. Hunt. But also you guys as leisure travelers, you're paying fares that average over $500 round trip. We'd like to see that number come down by creating more competition at XNA. And I think we're on a good course to make that happen eventually. I talk a little bit about the open space plan. So Northwest Arkansas is growing rapidly. We're adding 30 people a day. The folks at the Regional Planning Commission, the Walton Family Foundation, are very interested in more open spaces, doing more to ensure that not every tract is built on. We need wetlands. We need places that are just open. And we don't need all of those places to be a park. A lot of times when you say open space, everybody thinks I'm going to build a city park. Well, that's not always the case. A lot of times you just want nature to exist as it is right now. And as we add more people, we want to make sure that it continues to be that way. I'll say just a couple more things and I'll keep it brief. We have a great effort that's been going on for years and years called the Northwest Arkansas Regional Planning Commission. And all of our cities and the counties actually work together to frankly plan well for our region. They plan highway funds, they plan just planning in general. Their staff provides the planning staff for a lot of the smaller cities, which is extremely important because many of the smaller cities can't afford to have their own planning staff. So I'll wrap this up by just telling you that you're going to hear a lot about Springdale, but I hope as you hear Melissa and the mayor and many other people talk about Springdale, remember that it's part of a larger context. So everything that happens, every decision that's made in Springdale, what does that mean to my neighbor in Rogers? What does that mean to my neighbor in Siloam Springs? I mean, we need to be cognizant that the region as a whole is what's important. Springdale's important, but it's part of a larger picture. So that's the message I wanted to share with you all.
Well, this is real exciting for me. You know, we announced in the State of the City address earlier this year that we really wanted to start a youth council, and gave that job to Melissa to work with a committee that many of the committee members are here, and and just real excited to see it finally begin. And I want to thank all of them for their work, and congratulations to you. I think we had, what, 30, we had 18 spots and over 30 applicants, so you all won, I hope. I hope you feel like you won. Springdale is I'll just talk, and I appreciate Rob being here. We do work together very well as a region. I consider all of our neighboring mayors friends of mine that we work together, and certainly we compete to try and do what's best for our own city first. But there are on most issues, almost every issue, we all benefit when we can work together and as a region, and we can get more accomplished that way for our region. When I was a kid, driving from I grew up in Springdale, and driving from Springdale to Rogers or Springdale to Bentonville or even Springdale to Fayetteville, it was like a trip, and now you can't even tell where one ends and the other begins. And so, also Springdale's changed a lot. Besides just growth, we've grown a lot, but in the last 20 years, we've more than doubled in population. We're sitting right now as the 4th largest city in the state, right about 80,000, just a few thousand behind Fayetteville. And Fayetteville's number 3, Fort Smith's number 2, and Little Rock's number 1 in population. But a very fast-growing city, but also a very fast-changing city. When I was a kid in school, everybody pretty much looked like me. Not like I do now. Not like they didn't look 60, but they we were very homogenous. We didn't have a lot of diversity. My kids, when Sandy and I got married and started having kids, and our kids, we have 3 kids here in, that went through Springdale schools, and our oldest son Philip, who now works for Tyson. He graduated in '99 from Springdale High School. Andy is a Springdale fireman. He graduated in '01. And Bonnie graduated the last year before Harbor opened in '05, I think, so at Springdale High School. So they began to see in the 90s, especially as they were going through school, really began to see these changes take place. And I've always been thankful, and they're thankful, that when they went to school, everybody didn't necessarily look like them, and they were able to make friends and experience other cultures that I didn't get to. But we are a very diverse community. I believe we're the most diverse community in Arkansas now. We're at about between 30 and 37% Latino, probably close to 10%, if not over, Marshallese. But that's not all. We're about, there are over 40 languages spoken in the Springdale School District. And so we are a very diverse community. And we're very excited about that, and see that as a great positive. We are a welcoming community, and by that we actually, I think for the 3rd year, Saturday, I was privileged to read a proclamation for a welcoming event that was downtown in Shiloh Square. Just basically saying we want to be welcoming to folks who come here from all over the world. It doesn't speak to where people stand on various issues. It's just being who we ought to be to people who come here, and we ought to be welcoming. We ought to want people to succeed. If printing something in another language so that person can learn how things need to be done here and where to go for services and how to get things done, then that just makes sense. So we want to be a welcoming community, and we'll continue to do that. A lot of things going on in Springdale besides our growth, and if y'all get anything out of this, first of all, I'm excited about this because you're going to be working with myself and with city council members and with our Judge Harper, and with our city attorney, Ernest Cate. We'll have, you'll have mentors, and And I'm real excited about that part of the program because I believe we're going to learn as much as you all do, and I'm really looking forward to that. We need to know what you think, but you also need to learn. I want you to learn about our city. I want you to learn, some of the things Rob was talking about a while ago, wastewater and construction projects, roads. I mean, there are so many pieces that so many people don't think about because they don't have to. They're not in a position where they need to. But it's important that you understand, and I know after you go through this, you'll have a much better understanding of how a city works, how city governance works. And I hope that it's going to be something, I hope you live in Springdale the rest of your life. But if you don't, wherever you are, I hope you have this passion to be engaged with your community and to help your community. Someone said it earlier. We want to help others, make a difference in the lives of others. And I really think, I'm going to get personal here, but I really believe that's why we're here. That's why I think that's why God put me here, and that's why He put you here, because He's got a purpose for my life. And however that purpose plays out, we're all gifted different ways, and we have different talents. But however that all plays out, we're ultimately here to make a positive difference in the lives of others. And so being involved in your community is a way that I have really been blessed to be able to do that. And I served on the school board for 10 years before I became mayor, the Springdale School Board. And I'm in my 9th year as mayor. The city of Springdale, it's where I grew up. I love it. I want to do what's best for it, and I hope that you have that experience with each of your council that you're involved with me. If a couple of you are involved with me, I just really hope you learn and you come out of this experience with a real passion for your community, to make your community better, and understanding what kind of things go into the decision-making process. I don't make a decision as mayor, and they don't make a decision as council members that don't affect someone in a way that we probably didn't anticipate. When we make a decision, whether it's the creation of an ordinance or changing a city ordinance or laws that the city's governed by, there are usually effects that we didn't anticipate, and so think about that when we go through this, and when you meet your councilman and talk with them. Just important stuff that affects people's lives, and you try and make the best decision for the most people, and so we've got a lot of things going on. Springdale is changing rapidly as far as development. We're excited about that. Arkansas Children's Hospital opens probably in January. We've got a Sam's Club. We're getting new restaurants all the time. Our movie theater has been drastically improved. Someday we may have another one in addition to the one we've got. But Springdale is we're on a good trajectory as far as growth and as far as revenue. We're mostly funded, as Rob said. Our bread and butter, and every city's bread and butter, is sales tax. When you buy something and you buy it in Springdale, you pay 2 cents of every dollar goes to the city of Springdale, and that's pretty good bargain for all the services that the city provides with police, fire, public works, all the departments, animal control, parks and rec, all the departments that we have, and is funded mainly by that 2 cents. And that's why revenue and shopping, for Springdale residents to shop in Springdale, that's why that's so important. And thankfully, we're seeing a lot more places in Springdale where Springdale folks can spend their money. And because what we'll do is, our sales tax has been up. It was up 18% 2 months ago. It was up 17% last month. We'll get our numbers for this month, for this past month, probably later this week. And I expect to see a good increase again. And that's how we fund our services. So it's very important that that sales tax continues to grow. Something else you're going to hear a lot about. This is an exciting year to be a part of this because Springdale's going for a bond issue next, probably early next year. Now you'll learn more about that and what that means. But basically what it's going to do, that's how cities use a projected revenue stream, future revenue, to bond for projects that they need to do to keep up with, to be able to keep up with the current growth. When you see a lot of barrels, a lot of orange barrels and things going on in Springdale, that's good news because that means we're trying to stay caught up with our infrastructure. We never, when you're growing as fast as Springdale is and as fast as Northwest Arkansas is as a region, you're never going to stay caught up. You're always going to be trying to catch up. But those are good problems to have, and because it's an exciting time to live in Northwest Arkansas. But we will be going for a bond issue. That bond issue has to be voted on in 5 different ballot issues. We're going to be asking for 5 different ballot issues. You can't just say, what we're going to be able to do is create about $150 to $160 million in new construction revenue without raising anybody's taxes. It's an extension of an existing penny sales tax, okay? So, and you're going to hear more about this, but basically, if that generates $160 million of construction revenue for projects that the voters in Springdale decide are important, what we're probably looking at, now the council will ultimately decide how those ballot questions are asked, but we're probably looking at 5 areas. Infrastructure, which would be roads and things related to roads, a new criminal justice building and civic renovation, which will be this municipal campus downtown, new fire stations, new parks, and a new animal shelter. Those will probably be the 5. And each of those questions will have an amount, that $160 million pie will be divided up among those issues. And each issue will have to be approved by the voters. Okay? So if you've got $5 million of that $160 million that's going to be asked for to fund an animal shelter, then that has to be approved on its own. It has to stand on its own, just as parks and all those other issues do. So we did this last time in 2012. We only had 3 separate issues on that. We had parks, fire stations, and infrastructure. And they all passed by over 70%. So I'm hopeful that this one will too, because that's how we'll continue to make improvements. You know, if we hadn't passed the bond issue in 2012 and been able to build the Don Tyson Parkway interchange, improve 56th Street, which is now Gene George Boulevard, build the Southeast Park. How many of you have been to the George Park in the Southeast? The splash pad and yeah, isn't that great? Okay, well, we're going to build another one on the Northwest if we get this bond issue done. So, but we wouldn't have been able to build all that. We wouldn't have a children's hospital without the interchange at Don Tyson Parkway. We wouldn't have the Sam's Club. So we use these improvements to try and generate more development, which creates more revenue, which better enables us to return services to the residents that live here, you and me. Okay? Anyway, that's a quickie. And I know we'll have lots of opportunity to talk about those things, but I think it's going to be exciting for you to learn more about our police department, our fire department, probably some maybe even with our school district, which you're already a part of, regional issues, social issues, those things that are of interest to you is what's going to bubble out as you talk about things like a project and those things that you want to do. But I really look forward to my time with you and the time that our council, our judge, and our city attorney will be able to spend with you as mentors to help learn from you and you learn from us about our city and about how governance works. That's a big deal. Okay? All right. That's all I got, Melissa, unless you got something else.
Nope.
Questions?
Yes, so this is questions. So ask him about pretty much anything you've
Yeah.
ever wanted to know about Springdale.
Right.
It's completely open. Don't be afraid.
Right. Yes. Before being a mayor, I had a small business here in Springdale. I still have it, but I never go. My wife Sandy runs it. It's an upholstery business. It's Sprouse Upholstery on 40th Street. Been in it 30 years. Do furniture upholstery. Right? Okay. What else? A&M Railroad. A&M Railroad is of course, it's a private business. They do the excursions. I'm going to be on one tomorrow night to kick off Bikes, Blues, and Barbecue. And they're privately funded, but they do a couple. Besides excursions, they have a freight business. That's their bread and butter, and very active in Springdale. A big part of our downtown, actually. So, and our downtown revitalization, which is very exciting, and you're going to learn a lot more about as we move forward, as you go through this year, because a lot of things happening. Yes.
Really obvious our downtown neighborhood, Facebook.
Right.
Do you know how long that plan is? Because I know there's a lot of short-term plans, but how long before it's
When we first approved our downtown master plan, it was like a 20-year plan. I will tell you that it's already moving a lot faster than we thought it would. Private investments coming to the table quicker than we thought it would. But it's still a long process, because for downtown revitalization, we can, you've heard of putting lipstick on a pig? Yeah, we can do all the pretty things, you know, the streetscape like on East Emma that's just about to finish. Doing it down in front of the Apollo. Those things to help development. But one of the big factors in downtown revitalization is going to be residential, the residential side. Got to have people living there. And with the form-based codes the council passed, you'll learn more about what those were as you go this year. You'll hear a lot more about it. Through planning to help encourage quality development. They work there just as focused on the residential portion as they are the commercial portion, because both of those have to be grown up together, and that's what takes time. Although I will tell you, a lot of people don't realize this. Everybody talks about Bentonville. It's like Disneyland up there, you know, and talk about all the changes that have happened in downtown Bentonville. But they started in the mid-'90s. They've been at that a while. It didn't just happen overnight. And so we've laid the groundwork now. But I think we're on a trajectory to see actually development happen in Springdale, because we've got Bentonville to look at, and because we've learned from Bentonville and from Rogers and other cities that are a little ahead of us in downtown redevelopment, Fayetteville. I think we're on a better trajectory to see it happen quicker here. Plus, growth continues to escalate. So I think we'll see it happen sooner than the 20 years. We're already seeing it happen, and but that residential is a critical piece. And it's not people talk about the chicken and egg deal, which comes first. Well, neither really comes first. They've got to incrementally come up together. Okay? Good. Yes? The downtown, right now, we've got a new restaurant coming where the Steam was, Natural State Sandwiches. They were a food truck in Fayetteville, actually, for many, many years. And very popular, and there's going to be a great restaurant down here. There's some other things coming that we're doing. Rob mentioned an open space plan on the regional front. We're also doing an open space plan just for specific to downtown, and that deals with how we will treat our green space downtown. It's focused a lot on Luther George Park. There will be some changes, suggested changes to that park, and how along the Greenway and as it comes around toward Emma, how that all is developed. A lot of thought about green space going into our downtown redevelopment. So it's not just all going to be, sidewalks and buildings. Going to have a lot of quality green space, parks, pocket parks, that kind of thing. Yes.
So I know going into this,
everyone, I think most of us had the idea that we would be able to give input, about problems concerning our youth and our community.
Right.
So you being a mayor for 9 years, has it been already? What do you think?
I'm in my
Ninth year.
Yeah.
What do you think is one of the major problems that face the youth in our community?
Try it again. Everybody hear the question? I honestly think it's workforce. I really do. I mean, there are a lot of problems and a lot of issues out there. Y'all are going to talk about some of them tonight, I think. But from a perspective of being able to succeed, support your families, I think it's workforce. Workforce is, we're sitting here in Springdale with the lowest unemployment in the state, probably, or very close to it. Northwest Arkansas all has very low unemployment. I think Springdale's right at 2.2, 2.4%, something like that. That's basically full employment. And you'll see when you leave here, you can drive by, for sure, any fast food restaurant and see now hiring signs. And you'll see now hiring at a lot of establishments. It's because our employers are looking for people to hire. And it doesn't matter if it's a fast food restaurant or a manufacturer out here. They're looking for people to hire. So the decisions you make in the fields that you determine to go to are going to be very important. But our schools, that's what the School of Innovation I'm excited about. And all our schools are great, not only in Springdale, but in Northwest Arkansas, Haas Hall. They're all great opportunities. But this is just me, but that paradigm about everybody has to go to college, which was the paradigm when I was in high school, that's not necessarily true anymore. Now, if you're on a track to college, that's great. But there are a lot of people out there who aren't, and a 2-year certificate, you can be making 6 figures 2 years out of high school. There's a lot of college graduates that can't say that. So all I'm saying is workforce, this idea of workforce and how we approach workforce is changing. And so, but I think, for the most important thing to you, there may be other things, there may be social issues that are very important to you. That's great. They are important. But the bottom line is, are you going to be able to make a living and support your family? And that's where workforce comes in. And we've got to have an available and well-trained workforce to support the growth in our industry, in all kinds of jobs. And I know that's a big deal for Springdale. That's a big deal for our Northwest Council. That's a big deal for our state. And that may not have been the answer you expected, but I think that's from 30,000 feet. That's the biggest thing that I think the biggest thing that faces our youth today, our young people, as they are preparing to enter that workforce. Other questions? Yes. Qualifications, you got to get more votes than the person you're running against. That is it. You got to be a resident of Springdale, and you got to be 18 probably. Yeah, old enough to vote, right? Yes. Make a youth council? Well, I looked around and I saw a bunch of people like me that are getting old like me, and I began to ask, who's going to be doing this? Who's going to take care of me when I'm old? When I'm retired and sitting at home and I need trash service, or I need help figuring out my water bill, who's going to do that? It's very important that we're civic minded. I ultimately do what I do because I love our community. I hope you're civic minded, whether you realize it or not, or you wouldn't be here. You wouldn't have asked to do this. And I hope you can come out of this with an even greater love for serving your community. There are so many ways to do that. City council is one of those ways. Mayor is one of those ways. We've got lots of boards and commissions. Those are ways we can serve. But volunteer opportunities, I mean, I felt like, first of all, I'd heard the idea that it was happening in some other parts of the country, and I thought, man, that's a great idea. And nobody around here is doing it. And but really, it was looking around and seeing where we were, and it was like I saw a big gap between where we are and where you all are, and nobody in between. And boy, if we end up with this and 3 or 4 years, 5 years down the road, some of y'all are getting involved in city government, man, that's you know, we need that. So I'm being selfish. Need you to step up, and some of you, it won't be for all of you, but we've got to start grooming our next generation of civic leaders that care about their community and are willing to step out there. And you're going to take the heat sometimes for decisions you make, but boy, is it rewarding if that's what trips your trigger, and I hope it does. Okay.